Pimentel says that his study is better than other studies about alcohol, is that he includes the energy that goes into making the tractor that farms the corn. Now, of course, when you talk about petroleum, does he factor in, tankers and pipelines and all that? No, that's different. But when it comes to farming, he says you got to figure in the tractor. And he put in this figure, basically, and this figure has hardly changed over 25 years, which is suspicious in itself, that there's 49 pounds of tractor, steel and rubber, per acre that you got to factor in when you make alcohol. Now, if you're an academic, this is just a number, okay? I mean, you don't know what to do with this if you're an academic at the energy field, because he didn't publish any of his assumptions. Like, where did he get this number from? And finally, after 25 years, he finally has been, called out enough times in this that he actually put the assumptions in his 2005 paper, which will be the last paper he ever writes on the subject, especially when my book comes out. So at 49 pounds of tractor per acre, his assumptions finally put in writing were that a tractor has a 10-year life. He certainly isn't a farmer, because the average life of a tractor in the United States is 25.7 years. But let's just go with his 10-year life. And he said it was a 20,000-pound tractor, 10-ton tractor, and it was a 20,000-pound harvester, which of course is only used a few hours a year and on a lot of acreage. So I'm a farmer, and I finally get this data, and I do the math, 49 pounds, 10-year life, 20,000 tractor, and even with his numbers, the farm size comes out to 81 acres. Now, to put that in perspective, the average corn operation in the Midwest is 1,000 acres. But that alone wouldn't damn him, because all the academics who've ever criticized him weren't farmers. They didn't look at this number as anything other than a number. But I'm a farmer. I know what the size tractor this thing is. I can plant 81 acres of corn with this tractor in 4 hours. This is a huge tractor. Okay? And so it's a completely bogus number. He's taken a tractor that can actually farm 2,000 acres and attributes all the energy to 81 acres. And of course, if you go ahead and actually put the real life of the tractor, you'd have to make it about 40 acres, because it actually lasts 20 years. And then, nowadays, tractors don't even have tires anymore. They have treads, which use much less rubber, and so basically it gets down to about 30 acres. What it gets down to is that basically he's off by a factor of thousands, 3 orders of magnitude. So that's just one example of what he does. What he did in his studies all this time is, by monkeying with the assumptions, he could make the statistics come out any way he wanted. And nobody in academia had the experience in the field to catch him at it. He must have been laughing for the last 25 years at all these guys. So the other thing that he does is he turns everything into gasoline equivalents. Gasoline equivalents. That means not gasoline, something that's equivalent to gasoline. So you look at the energy that it takes to make alcohol, and right now, the fuel that's used to make alcohol in the United States, is it renewable, it's coal, or it's natural gas. And so, yes, those are not renewable fuels, but they're not petroleum. So when he says that it takes 1.5 gallons of gasoline to make a gallon of alcohol, or 1.5 gallons of oil to make a gallon of alcohol, that's not even close. The actual petroleum used, including for pesticides, herbicides, fuel for the field, etc., comes out to 1/6 of the energy that comes out of alcohol. Now, you could say, well, they still got a point. Coal and natural gas are not renewable, so it's not a lot different than petroleum. But petroleum is what's running out. Natural gas is a little bit behind it, and coal is not going to be running out soon. But even doing this study is completely intellectually dishonest, because corn is a minority crop in the world in the production of alcohol. In other words, most of the alcohol in the world is not made from corn. It's made from sugarcane. The expert on this is Isaiah Macedo, and he has done an incredibly exhaustive study this thick where Pimentel's papers come out, they're 5 pages, where he has gone through and done all the greenhouse gas calculations, taken every bit of steel that is used in an alcohol plant and in farming, takes it all the way back to smelting the ore, and he's really analyzed every bit of energy that goes in such an exhaustive way, in the way that basically Pimentel alleges he's done. And he says with sugarcane, you get 8.3 units of energy out for every energy of unit in. And that's very conservative. I mean, this is assuming you're going back and smelting the ore. In reality, 75% of steel in both Brazil and the United States is recycled. In other words, when something goes to the scrapyard, it doesn't have to be smelted from ore all over again. It takes a tiny amount of energy. The same is true of rubber in the United States. 76% of all tire rubber in the United States is now recycled. So the big energy things that he had in his study turned out to not be true at all, because he didn't give any credit to the recycling of the metal at the end. Macedo doesn't either, to be conservative, and he still comes up with 8.3 to 1. This is a pretty damn good energy output. But it's even better than it appears, because Macedo, in working with sugarcane, is not saying you get 8.3 units of energy out for a unit of petroleum. He's saying you get 8.3 out for a unit of energy. And where does that energy come from? Well, in Brazil, you crush the sugar cane to get the juice, and that's what you make into sugar or alcohol. But what's left over is the whole sugarcane stalk fiber, and that goes into big boilers, which then produce steam and run the whole plant. All the energy, heating needs of distillation and cooking and everything else comes from burning the plant fiber. That's renewable. I mean, it's essentially like burning wood. It's renewable, it grows every year. They burn enough of it, and they make so much electricity with it, that 3/4 of the electricity they make gets put into the grid, because they don't even need it in the plant. So, in reality, what you're getting out for energy out, this is a different figure now, energy out for non-renewables in, really is about 500 to 1. Because what you're doing is trapping solar energy, and that's where all this energy comes from. The amount of petroleum used or non-renewables used in the production of alcohol is so small that it's about a 500 to 1 return. Why? Brazilians, they must use fertilizer, right? And fertilizer is made from natural gas. Well, let's talk about this. We've already talked about, and this is going to get us back to corn. And then we'll see how it works with sugarcane. Because we have several questions here we can tie up very neatly with one thing. When you grow corn, you're going to learn some things that they didn't teach you in biology at school. When you grow corn is primarily made of cellulose. Cellulose is plant fiber. Cellulose is made from thousands of sugar molecules linked together. Okay? Starch is 35 sugar molecules linked together, and of course, sugar is produced by itself. So, when you grow corn, for every pound of grain that you harvest from the plant, you get 2.5 pounds of stalk. Now, I'm going to have to do a little segue here about greenhouse gases, because this is part of Macedo's study and part of corn too.
How do you spell his name, please?
Macedo. People in the oil business are fond of saying that alcohol puts out just as much carbon dioxide as gasoline. 20 pounds of carbon dioxide per gallon of fuel goes out the exhaust pipe, whether it's gasoline or alcohol. So they say alcohol is not any good for the environment. But, as you remember from earlier in the talk, this plant takes in carbon dioxide, takes in water, and makes this grain. All right? When we go ahead and make the alcohol from that grain and we put it through the car, the carbon dioxide and water are released back to the air out the exhaust pipe, and the solar energy explodes, and it's what runs your car. So it's CO2 and sunlight. Now, that's just the grain.